The restaurant was quiet. Polished tables, soft music, and the kind of elegant atmosphere where people pretended to be better than they really were. And then the door opened. A young woman stepped inside, clutching her purse like it was the only safe thing in the room. Ava Collins. Curvy, beautiful, shy, and trembling. The moment she walked in, the laughter started. 3 boys in matching varsity jackets lifted their phones together, recording her as if she were some kind of joke they invented. One of them whispered, loud enough for the entire room to hear, "Bro, wait till Ethan sees this." Ava heard it. Everyone heard it. Her shoulders curled in, her eyes dropped to the floor, and for a second, she almost turned around to leave. But she didn't. She took one painful step, then another. Every gaze in the restaurant followed her like a spotlight. And at a table near the window sat Ethan Miller, the man she had come to meet. Single dad. Nervous, kind, completely unaware of the cruel setup unfolding around him. He looked up, expecting a date engineered by his friends as a fun surprise. Instead he saw Ava, her shaking hands, her humiliation, her fear. And behind her, the boys filming, smirking, whispering, "Wait till he rejects her. This is gonna blow up online." Ava's lips parted as if to apologize for existing. She stepped toward the table with all the courage she had left. The room held its breath. They wanted to break her. But they didn't know the kind of man Ethan truly was. And they had no idea how this moment would break them instead. Before we go on, have you ever seen someone mocked just for the way they look? Tell us your story in the comments. Your voice might help someone who needs it today. Ava Collins wasn't used to places like this. Fancy restaurants, white tablecloths, people who judged before they even looked up. But tonight, she had promised herself she would try. For years, Ava lived between the quiet aisles of the bookstore where she worked and the small studio apartment she hid in when the world felt too heavy. She wasn't the type who turned heads when she walked down the street. At least, not for the reasons people celebrated. But what she did have was gentleness. Soft eyes. A heart that still believed in kindness, even after life had tried, again and again, to teach her the opposite. So when a friend convinced her to go on a blind date, she took a breath, put on her simple beige dress, and whispered to the mirror, "Maybe tonight, someone will see me." She didn't expect perfection. She just hoped for respect. Meanwhile, across the restaurant, Ethan Miller waited, tapping his foot nervously, adjusting his collar, glancing at the menu without reading a word. Ethan wasn't like the boys who brought him here. He was older than them. Wiser. A single father whose life had been reshaped by loss and responsibility. He worked long hours, raised his daughter alone, and rarely found time for himself. So when his co-workers said they wanted to help him get back out there, he believed them. He didn't know they were setting him up for entertainment. He didn't know they had chosen Ava only because they thought she would embarrass him. He didn't know their cameras were already rolling. But Ethan wasn't built like them. When Ava stepped into the room, awkward, nervous, trying to shrink into herself, Ethan didn't see a joke. He saw a woman doing her best to be brave. A woman who deserved gentleness. A woman who reminded him what courage actually looked like. And as she approached, Ethan felt something shift inside him. An instinct he hadn't felt in a long time. Be kind. She's someone's daughter. She's someone trying. And that's all he needed to know. Ava's steps were slow, careful, as if she were terrified the floor might collapse beneath her. But what she didn't realize was that the real danger wasn't under her feet. It was behind her. The boys who had orchestrated the blind date prank stood near the entrance like a wall of smirking shadows. Phones out. Cameras recording. Whispers flying like poisoned arrows. "Bro, look, she's actually going over there. This is gonna be gold. Keep recording. Don't miss his face." People at nearby tables glanced over, their expressions twisting with the kind of judgment Ava had spent her whole life learning to endure. Some looked confused, others amused, and a few looked almost excited, like they were watching a reality show unfold in front of them. Ava felt every one of those eyes on her skin, burning, poking, peeling away the fragile confidence she had built that morning. Her fingers tightened around her purse strap. Her throat went dry. Her breathing turned shallow. Still she kept walking. Ethan watched all of this. The whispering, the phones, the mocking smirks, the way Ava shrank into herself with every step. His jaw clenched. Something about the way she carried her pain so silently. The way she refused to turn back. The way she pushed forward despite the humiliation. It stirred something protective inside him. Meanwhile, the boys continued. He's gonna reject her instantly. Dude, get her from the side. This angle is hilarious. Imagine thinking you're date material. They didn't finish the sentence. Because Ethan stood up. Not abruptly. Not dramatically. But with calm, confident purpose. A movement so unexpected that even the boys lowered their phones for a second. Ava froze. Ethan smiled. Gently. A smile that didn't pity her, but invited her to breathe again. Ava, he asked, voice steady and warm. I'm really glad you came. The restaurant went quiet. And for the first time since she walked through that door, Ava felt seen. Not mocked. Not judged. Not measured. But this was only the beginning. The real cruelty was still to come. And the real transformation had not yet begun. Ava tried to smile back at Ethan. But the room didn't let her. The whispers grew louder. Harsher. Sharper than knives. A woman at a nearby table leaned into her date and muttered. Not quietly. Why would someone like her show up here? Another man scoffed. This has to be a joke. Look at her. Ava felt the words like blows to the chest. Invisible hits she couldn't block. She forced herself forward, but her knees trembled. Her pulse hammered in her ears. Her throat tightened so much she could barely swallow. Behind her, the boys escalated. Zoom in. Dude, look at her face, she's dying inside. Bro, when he sends her away, that's the clip we upload first. Wait till she sits down. The chair might break. That one hit Ava hardest. Her breath caught. Her eyes stung. Her fingers shook. She didn't need to look back to know they were talking about her body. The thing she'd been mocked for since middle school. The thing she tried to hide, shrink, minimize. The thing she never believed anyone would find beautiful. And now, an entire restaurant was watching her shame unfold like a show. She stopped mid-step. Frozen. Ethan saw it happen. The exact moment her spirit cracked. Her shoulders caved. Her chin dipped. Her eyes shut just for a second. As if she wished she could disappear into the floor. Then one tear slipped down her cheek. Just one. But it was enough. Ethan's heart dropped. Not out of pity, but out of recognition. He had seen that same tear years ago. On his daughter's face. On the day kids mocked her at school for not being small enough to be pretty. He knew that kind of pain. He knew how deep it cut. He knew how long it lived inside a person. The boys snickered louder. Watch this. He's about to send her away. Get his reaction. But Ethan didn't sit still. He took a step toward Ava. Then another. And suddenly, the entire restaurant realized something was happening. Voice. Moment. Turning point. Ava lifted her eyes, barely able to speak. Sorry. I shouldn't have come. This was a mistake. Her voice broke. And that single crack in her sentence became the moment the audience emotionally bonded to her forever. They wanted justice. They wanted Ethan to protect her. They wanted the cruelty punished. The hook tightened. And the real story was about to begin. Ava took a shaky breath, blinking fast, trying to hide the tears before they fell. But she couldn't. They were already there, glittering on her lashes, betraying every wound she'd kept buried inside her for years. The boys behind her leaned forward, phones up, hungry for her humiliation. She's gonna run, one whispered. Get it on camera. Ava opened her mouth, her voice breaking. Ethan, I'm so sore. But she didn't get to finish. Because Ethan stepped toward her. Slowly, only, with purpose. The entire room stilled. Forks midair. Conversations cut off. Breaths held. Even the boys lowered their phones without realizing it. Ethan stopped just inches from her. and gently tilted her chin up with the softest touch, forcing her to look at him, not at the monsters behind her. His voice came out low, steady, and warm. Ava, don't ever apologize for showing up. Ava froze. Ethan took her hand, not out of pity, but out of respect, out of kindness, out of the simple belief that she deserved it. Then he turned, looking directly at the boys behind her. His expression, not angry, not explosive, but disappointed, hit harder than any shout ever could. He raised his voice just enough for the entire restaurant to hear. If you have to hurt someone to make yourselves feel big, promise you, you're already smaller than you think. A collective gasp moved through the room. The boys stiffened. A woman at a nearby table whispered, "Oh my God!" A waiter paused mid-step. Ethan wasn't done. He looked at Ava again, eyes soft, voice steady. "You walked in here with courage most people wouldn't even understand. And if you'll allow me, I would be honored to have dinner with you." Ava covered her mouth with her hand, her breath trembling. The room melted. The whispers stopped. People stared, not at her body, not at her dress, but at the raw humanity in that moment. Ethan pulled out her chair, not as a performance, not out of guilt, but because that's how you treat someone with dignity. Ava sat down, slowly, still stunned. And then the most shocking thing happened. The restaurant applauded, soft at first, then louder. A ripple of humanity, spreading through a room that, minutes earlier, had been poisoned with cruelty. The boys looked around, panicking, phones suddenly useless, their prank collapsing like a bad joke exposed under real light. Ethan didn't even look at them again. He looked only at Ava, and for the first time that night, she smiled. A small, fragile, trembling smile, but real. Sometimes all it takes is one brave voice to silence a room full of cruelty, and one good heart to remind someone they were never the punchline. The applause faded, but the tension didn't, because humiliation doesn't just disappear. It ricochets. The boys who had orchestrated the whole prank, Ben, Bill, and Mason, stood frozen near the entrance, their phones limp in their hands, faces pale. This wasn't the reaction they expected. They thought the restaurant would laugh with them. They thought Ethan would reject Ava. They thought Ava would break. But instead, they were the ones breaking. People who had witnessed the scene now turned fully toward them. Not amused. Not entertained. Disgusted. A middle-aged woman in a blue dress stood up first. She pointed at the boys, voice sharp. "Is this what you call fun? Filming a woman to mock her?" Another voice joined, an older man near the bar. "Your parents should be ashamed." A waiter stepped forward, jaw clenched. "You don't get to treat customers like that here." Ben tried to laugh it off. "Relax, it was just a joke." But the room erupted. A joke? On a woman who came here alone and terrified. "What's wrong with you?" Mason attempted to defend himself. "We weren't hurting anybody." A sharp voice cut him off. "You were hurting her." The restaurant manager, a tall man with graying hair, approached, face stern, voice cold enough to freeze the air. "Gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to leave. Now." He'll scoff. "You can't kick us out for." The manager stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "Record someone again without their consent. Mock a guest again. Interfere with someone's dignity again. And you won't just be kicked out. You'll be banned." Silence. Utter, humiliating silence. People watched them like they were the villains in a movie. And for the first time, the boys felt it. The shame. The exposure. The consequences. Their prank wasn't funny anymore. It wasn't going viral the way they imagined. And when they finally turned toward the exit, something in the restaurant shifted. Nobody looked away. Nobody ignored it. Nobody softened. They walked through a tunnel of judgment they could no longer escape. Meanwhile, Ethan sat across from Ava, not triumphantly, not smug, just calm. He reached out across the table, voice gentle. "You okay?" Ava looked down at her hands, still trembling, then back up at him. Her eyes glistened. I don't understand why you stood up for me." Ethan shook his head softly. Ava, no one deserves to be treated like that. Not ever. Not for how they look. Not for being nervous. Not for anything. The chaos around them faded into background noise. Because in that moment, Ava wasn't looking at the restaurant anymore. She wasn't thinking about the prank. She wasn't replaying the laughter. She was seeing Ethan. Really seeing him. Cruelty spreads fast. But kindness creates a wave no one can stop. The restaurant slowly regained its hum of soft conversation, clinking glasses, and gentle music. But something inside Ava had changed. The humiliation still lingered. But so did the warmth of the moment Ethan stood up for her. She lifted her eyes again. This time she met his gaze without flinching. Ethan smiled. Not the pitying kind people often gave her. Not a forced, awkward grin. A real smile. Warm. Steady. Inviting. He leaned in slightly. Ava, can I tell you something? She swallowed, still unsure. Yes. Ethan hesitated. Not out of doubt, but out of sincerity, as if choosing his words with care. You walked into this place tonight braver than anyone I've ever met. Ava blinked, stunned. He continued. Most people never show up to things that scare them. But you did. And I think that says a lot more about who you are than whatever those idiots behind you tried to make you feel. Ava's breath caught. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not as a joke. Not as an apology. Not as an afterthought. But as truth. Ethan glanced down at her hands, still trembling on the table. He gently placed his hand near hers. Not touching. Just close enough to let her decide. She moved her, teeny, but monumental. Ethan's eyes softened. Ava, I didn't come here looking for perfection. I came here hoping to meet someone real. A slow warmth spread through her chest, the kind of warmth that feels like healing. She whispered, You don't think I ruined your night? Ethan chuckled softly. You saved it. Ava's lips curved into the smallest, sweetest smile. A smile that said, I'm still scared, but maybe I don't have to be. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't shrinking. She wasn't apologizing for her existence. She wasn't bracing for rejection. She was seen. She was valued. She was worthy. Sometimes the moment you think you're breaking is the moment you begin to heal. The chaos of the earlier scene had faded into nothing more than memory. The boys were gone. The whispers had stopped. The phones were put away. But for Ava and Ethan, the world had grown very, very small, shrinking down to just the space between them, and the beating truths they were both afraid to share. Ava took a slow breath, staring at the candle between them. Its soft flame trembled like her voice when she finally spoke. I haven't been on a date in years. Ethan looked at her gently. Why? Ava hesitated. Her fingers traced the edge of her napkin. Because people decide who you are before you even say a word. Her voice cracked barely. They look at my body, or my face, or the way I sit, and they think they know everything. She blinked rapidly, tears threatening but not falling. It's easier to stay home than to be a disappointment. Ethan's expression softened, heartbreak flickering behind his eyes. Ava. She forced a sad laugh. I told my friend I'd try tonight. That maybe someone out there wouldn't judge me before I even opened my mouth. Her gaze dropped again. But when those boys started laughing, I thought, of course this would happen to me. Ethan leaned forward, lowering his voice like a promise. Ava, listen to me. She looked up. What she saw in his eyes made her breath hitch. Nothing about you is a disappointment. Not your size. Not your voice. Not your fears. And definitely not your heart. Ava swallowed hard. But you don't even know me. Ethan gave a small, warm smile. I know you walked into a room full of strangers even though you were terrified. I know you didn't let their cruelty break you. And I know that anyone who can survive that kind of pain has more strength than half the people in this restaurant. Ava's lips trembled. Not from pain this time. From recognition. From hearing the truth she had never allowed herself to believe. Ethan added quietly, "And if you let me, I'd like to know the rest of you too." Ava's eyes finally softened into something vulnerable, hopeful, unguarded. For the first time in the entire night, she didn't feel like she had to shrink, or hide, or apologize. She felt accepted. Sometimes the person who changes your life isn't the one who arrives with roses, but the one who sees you, exactly as you are, and chooses you anyway. The night outside had turned quiet. That kind of peaceful, gentle hush that feels like the world finally catching its breath. Ava and Ethan walked side by side toward the exit, not touching, but close enough for their steps to fall into the same rhythm. When they reached the door, Ava paused. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the glass. Not the girl who walked in trembling, but a woman who had survived something, and found something else in return. Something unexpected, something warm, something she didn't know she deserved. Ethan stopped beside her. "You okay?" he asked softly. Ava nodded, though her voice shook. "I thought tonight would break me, but instead, it showed me that maybe I've been wrong about myself." Ethan smiled gently. "You were never the problem, Ava. People's cruelty was." A small tear slipped down her cheek, not from pain, but from release, from years of holding it all in. "Thank you," she whispered. Ethan shook his head with a warmth that felt like sunlight. "Don't thank me. Thank yourself for showing up." Ava's breath caught again. It was such a simple sentence, but it felt like someone had just opened a window in a room she'd been trapped in for years. As they stepped into the cool night, Ethan offered his arm, not demanding, not assuming, only offering. Ava hesitated for half a second. Then she took it. Not because she needed saving, not because she needed validation, but because she finally understood one truth. She deserved kindness. She deserved respect. She deserved love, however it found her. Have you ever been judged before someone even knew your name? Share your story below. Your voice might be the one that gives courage to someone who needs it tonight.